The movie begins with a pet photographer named Brian working in his studio with his assistant Tanya, who always expresses her love for him, but Brian gets annoyed every time she flirts with him. Once, while he was taking a picture of a client's dog, a new client arrives, and it was a rich woman who owned a cat. Brian tells Tanya to keep the cat away from the dog. Tanya shows the woman several outfits for her cat to wear, but when the dog sees the cat, he follows her, and they cause a huge mess in the studio. Brian cleans up the place and Tanya apologizes to him. A Croatian gangster named Vadik Nikitin visits the town. He meets immigration agents, Agent Ross and Agent Myers. They talk about something. He expresses his desire for his daughter, Masha, to obtain American citizenship. He tells them that he is willing to pay $10,000 to speed up the procedures, but they threaten him with imprisonment for offering to bribe them. He gets angry with his assistant, Brick, for bringing in clients who don't take bribes. Brick promises to get him other clients, and Nikitin refuses and says they have to find another way. Brian visits the doctor, who tells him he is suffering from stress, and while he is treating him, two men enter and kidnap Brian. It was Brick and Oleg who had kidnapped him and were bringing him to Nikitin. He asks why he was kidnapped, but Nikitin says he owes him and that the woman who owned the cat is his wife and that the cat was injured after the accident and his wife is sad because of it. He apologizes by saying that his assistant is new and doesn't know how to handle animals and he offers to pay the vet's fees. He asks him for a way to make amends, and Nikitin tells him that he must marry his daughter. And because Masha has a problem with her visa, it would be easier if she married an American. He refuses, but Nikitin tells him that he can separate from her after a year and he must not touch her, because she will marry Brick, and he threatens him that if he does not do so, he will end his life, and he gives him time to think. Brian thought about the offer all night and couldn't imagine what Masha looked like. He tells his mother, who is happy that he will marry and have children, but he tells her that he cannot touch the girl. 2 weeks before the wedding, Brian met Nikitin on his private plane. Before marrying his daughter, Nikitin gave him a precious ring to use in the wedding ceremony, so that no one would suspect the truth of their marriage. In the studio, Tanya was shocked to hear this. She thought he wanted to get rid of her, but he makes it clear to her that he doesn't love her and only sees her as an assistant. He meets Brick, who tells him the details of his relationship with Masha, even if he is being questioned by immigration agents. He asked him to do his best so that no one would doubt his marriage. He meets Masha and is disappointed, because she wasn't attractive, but finds out that she is Zoya and not Masha. Suddenly, someone pats him on the back and it's Masha. She's beautiful and he admires her. They talk and she tells him about the immigration agents who were there. He starts to act like Masha is really his fiancée. Brick sees him, so he turns away from her. On his way back, immigration men approach him to ask how he met Masha. He remembered everything Brick had told him and told the immigration men. The man warns him that he will be involved in marrying the daughter of a notorious man involved in criminal cases, but he insists that he loves her and that her father did not force him to do so. The day of the wedding comes and they start off very well and very happy. Tanya plans to make the wedding miserable, and the immigration agents disguise themselves as a waiter. Brick was jealous and wanted to punch Brian, but Nikitin stopped him. Suddenly Tanya stands up on the stage and there are the newlyweds, and tells them that she and Brian are married. Brian takes to the stage to make it clear, and eventually Masha's mother tells him to take care of her daughter, and Nikitin warns him not to touch her or he will kill him. They are going away for their honeymoon, and he tells her that they should act like friends, but she objects. The employee there tells them that the flights are cancelled and they have to book a room here, but they insist on traveling. They get into the helicopter, and Ernesto maneuvers through clouds and lightning. They land at Nuku-Hiva, as he drives them to the resort in his car. Mud all over their clothes. Masha bathes in the fountain, and Brian finds her attractive and feels in love with her, but he must control his feelings so that Nikitin doesn't kill him. Later, Masha tells him that she does not love Brick, and that her father pushed her to marry him. She says she will open a dance studio for children. He thanks her for choosing to honeymoon in a tropical area, where he can take pictures of the animals there, and he walks out of the room. In the evening he sees everyone together. The waitress Lanny approaches him. He tells her that his wife is sleeping because of tiredness, and he says that she loves to dance, so Lanny takes him and teaches him to dance. Masha sees them and gets angry. He tries to explain to her, but she explains to him that their relationship is only for the sake of obtaining citizenship. Nikitin asks Brick for any updates on their honeymoon, and he tells him he's going to the island, because he doesn't trust Brian. Brian is reading a magazine, Lanny sees him and apologizes for what happened. She tells him about a secluded place where he can take Masha, and she gives him a map so they don't get lost. His mother calls him and asks him about the honeymoon, asking him to make Masha love him. Brian went to apologize to Masha, but she wasn't angry. She apologizes for her overreaction. He invites her to go to the beach that Lanny suggested. He takes his cameras with him. He takes many pictures of her and they have fun. They reach the beach. She takes his clothes and runs away. But suddenly 2 men kidnap her. He returns to the hotel and asks Lanny about Masha. And after he leaves, Brick arrives. Brian is shocked that Tanya is in his room and asks her to leave, but she refuses. His phone rings and he thinks it's Masha, but the voice is a man's. They tell him that they have kidnapped his wife and will return her for $10 million, and they give him until 6 o'clock tomorrow. It turns out that the kidnappers are immigration agents. Lanny goes to Brian's room, and he tells her that Masha has been kidnapped. She is surprised to see Tanya there. Brick heads to the bar and a man tells him he saw Brian dancing with his bartender and went into the woods with Masha, which gets Brick angry. Lanny offers to help Brian find Masha. There is a knock on the door. Brick arrives and hears the girl's voice, but they hide. He threatens him because he hasn't seen Masha, so Brian tells him she's in the pool. He goes looking for her and finds Tanya, who tells him that Masha has been kidnapped. Lanny's cousin Ernesto arrives to help Brian. Brick sees Brian running away, but he pursues them, and they escape through the bushes. Tanya falls in love with Ernesto. They get into the helicopter. Brick arrives and shoots them, but fails. Brick tells Nikitin what happened. Meanwhile, agents bring Masha to an abandoned camp and cover their car. Brian and the group couldn't see their camp because Tanya was screaming. It got dark and they camped on the beach. Brian was upset. Lanny told him that they were going to visit a fishing village and might find her tomorrow. Agent Myers tries to steal Masha's ring, but she hits him and he falls, and then they handcuff her. In the morning, Brian and the group go to a fishing village. The residents tell them they saw Americans heading into the mountains. Lanny blames Tanya because they went to that mountain before, but she screamed, which prevented them from finding out. Lanny suggests they go there without the chopper so the kidnappers won't notice, but Tanya objects. Brian calls Nikitin and promises to return his daughter and decides to save her alone. Brick heads to the fishing village. The agents talk to their boss, and it turns out that he is Brick who betrayed Nikitin and used his daughter to steal the money. Masha succeeds in untangling the rope and freeing herself, but finds the door locked. Then she mixes the chemicals and tells Myers she wants to go to the bathroom. He goes to untie her, and when he opens the door, she pours chemicals on his face. He screams and Agent Ross enters, but she hits him with a skateboard and he passes out, and she runs away. Brick arrives and beats up Ernesto, and Tanya tells him about Brian. Lanny and Ernesto run to Brian's aid and board the helicopter. The agents get up and get into the car, looking for Masha. Masha calls Brian, after which he arrives at the camp and finds her ring. At that moment, Brick arrives and calls his men, who tell him that Masha has run away. Brian overhears their conversation and discovers that Brick is the mastermind behind her kidnapping. Brick hears Brian's phone. They shoot and Brian escapes in Brick's car. Masha was running, and the clients were catching up with her. She sees Brian and gets in the car with him, but the agents shoot the car's engine, and the car breaks down. They run to the river and get into a boat. She calls her father, but Agent Myers arrives and drops her phone in the river. But Brian hits him and they run away. They land in a village, so the tribe there helps them. They couldn't understand their language, but they give them food. And at night they celebrate, and Masha joins them and dances with them, and Brian dances. The next day, Agent Ross and Brick head into the village and shoot everyone. Brian and Masha ran down the slope. Their Agent Ross cornered them, but Brick shot him, as he wanted to appear as a hero. But Masha knew the truth. Brick admits it. She tells him that she will not marry him. Ernesto arrives and Brian seizes the opportunity and attacks Brick. He is being beaten, and Masha aims a gun at Brick and shoots him. He falls off the cliff and drags Brian with him. She sees Brick dead on a rock, while Brian fell into the sea. Moments later she sees him swimming away from the current. Ernesto takes them in with his helicopter, where Nikitin and his men are waiting for them, and his men head to beat up Brian. Masha ran to her father and told him that Brick was behind everything. He stops his men, thanks Brian and gives him a gun as a gift. Her mother was grateful to him, and they hoped he would continue their marriage, as they welcomed him into the family. Brian tells Masha he loves her but he cannot live with her family and leaves. Months passed and Brian continued with his work. His mother called him and was mad at him for breaking up with his wife. Meanwhile, Masha continues to practice dancing, but she is upset and always thinks of Brian. On her way back, she saw a gift on the ground, and outside she saw the tribe that had saved her and they had Lanny with them. Brian appears and was crying too as he begged her to come back to him. He expressed his love for her. If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.